Hey guys, Toolman Tim here. Welcome back to the workshop where we build business, create community, find freedom, and share success. Welcome. It's a Tuesday night. It's a special edition of Talking Tools. You guys all know normally it's on a Sunday evening, but this week we had to move it around. I took a poll, made an executive decision, and decided to throw this out on Tuesday night instead of Friday night. So I hope you guys enjoy it. And if you're listening to this on a recording after the fact, or if you're listening to this on the weekly workshop podcast, thanks for taking the time to drop in and give us a listen. So we're going to do something a little bit different this evening. With all the hurricanes on the go, you guys know I love to talk about generators. I love to talk about emergency preparedness. And I thought this week, why don't we talk about dealing with food, that's storage, cooking, and all the other stuff during an extended power outage. I thought, hey, let's share some of the thoughts we have, and I thought I'd put it together in a list. And you know what I love about lists? Everybody loves lists. If you guys seen Joseph's video this week, you know people love lists. And what I like about lists is you might come into it and say, you know what? I know everything there is to know about backup power, food storage, cooking, the whole works. But you know what? Every time I go through a list like this, I always learn one thing. And even if I don't necessarily learn something, what ends up happening is the person who's sharing the list or, teaching a little bit ends up inspiring one little nugget to get twisted around in your brain. And you think, hey, I know what it is I need to deal with. So without further ado, let's talk about the three issues that you can end up dealing with in an extended power outage. And when it comes to food, you're going to end up either storing it, cooking it, or throwing it. So let's dig in, guys. So the biggest thing that we end up needing to deal with, 6,500 views. Yeah, I love that, Joseph. I knew that one was going to blow up. I didn't know it was going to blow up that big, but I'm excited. So when we're dealing with a power outage, we got to have a plan in place beforehand. You guys know I'm huge on having plans in place. So number one, make sure you have the gear. And I'm big on all of your gear needing to have multiple uses. So it's no sense in just spending a bunch of money on something that you're only going to use during a power outage. I mean, unless it's a generator, of course. But I love having things that have dual purpose, like a camping stove. You're going to use it while you go camping, but you're also going to use it in a power outage to cook your food. But it's all good and well to have all the gear in the world, but if you don't test it ahead of time, what are you going to do? So make sure you take the time, get all that gear out, test it, run it through its paces, know how to use it. To me, that's a huge thing, is knowing how to use all this stuff, because we can go and we can spend all the money we want on all the prepping gear we want. And if we haven't tested it and we haven't taken the time to make it work, then we're all going to be, up a creek without a paddle, right? So, I was worried about Ted recently because I know he's down in the Florida area and I know the storm came through. And I don't know about you, Joseph, if it hit your area or not, but it seemed to have a fairly wide swath. But, one thing we always did on the East Coast where I grew up was if you heard there was a chance of a storm coming in a couple of days, I always said one of the things, I think the Weather Network and the grocery stores were in bed together, because as soon as people knew there was a storm coming, it was time to stock up. And honestly, we should be prepared ahead of time. But if we know there's a storm coming, it doesn't hurt to get out and pick up a few last minute items that you might need. Look in the fridge, look in the freezer, look on the shelves. Hey, this is the thing I need. Or maybe I could use another 5-gallon can of gas, or maybe I need, another 24 pack of ramen, or whatever it happens to be. Take stock, run out quick, pick up the last few things just to make sure, run through, test everything out, take a little bit of time and say, okay, that's working, that's not working, because there's nothing worse than, deciding it's time to cook a hot meal on the cook stove, and all of a sudden, shoot, the little propane isn't working, or the intake nozzle's jammed up, whatever it happens to be. Hey, Lil Klondike, thanks for coming. I hope I pronounced that right. It looks like Lil'Klondike Outdoors, so I hope it is. And you didn't even get a dropper. I seen you had a rainbow, Joseph, there on a dry day, so it is what it is. We ended up getting a real nasty rainstorm here, a little bit of hail, the whole works. So it always makes you think about it, So in a long power outage, like I said, you got three options: store it, cook it, or throw it away. And of course, The best way to store things is where it already is, but there's a ton of different options. My dad always used to love on Christmas, we'd always have way too much pop, and he'd always get a big kick out of the fact that, hey, we can take it and put it out on the back deck because it's cold outside. So one thing you can do, if you got a bunch of coolers, always good to have on hand anyway. And if it happens to be a cold time of the year, pack them full of ice and snow. Now, if it happens to be, say, the summer, always have a source for ice to know where you can get ice quickly. Now, for me, I got 2 garages around here that sell ice. I've got about 17 liquor stores in my little town. No, 3 liquor stores that have ice and a water shop that has ice. So as long as you know where you can get ice on a short period of time, then get it going. I just skirted to the east. I'm just getting my stuff together in case. Hey, I'd rather be prepared and not need it than need it and not be prepared, right? So, but yeah, so, number one, I mean, oh, hey, Chris, how are you? Nice to see you as well. Man, we got a good little crowd in here. I didn't know how many people we'd end up having on a Tuesday evening because, well, decided to take the weekend and go away with the family. We had a good time, but you know what? I wanted to do this so that I could get it out in time for the podcast too. So yeah, so coolers and ice, always a good thing, but you got to think outside the box. So if it is cold outside and you're trying to keep your house warm, well, maybe it's time to move some stuff out to the deck or pack it in coolers, pack it with ice, snow, the whole works. Moving blankets on your freezer. So number one, if you've already got stuff in your freezer and you don't want it to go bad, I never thought of that. And you know what else? I've been known to drop in back in the day when things were much tighter than they are now. My daughter and I took an entire trip across country and we made all our food ahead of time, sandwiches and the whole works. And to keep it cold, I would just kind of pull into a hotel in the middle of the afternoon with some really big freezer bags. And I know this is maybe kind of on, anyway, we'd go in, I just walk in like I owned the place, find the ice maker, fill the bags full of ice and walk out. And nobody ever said anything to me. So that's always an option too. So if you ever need ice, hotels are another one. Restaurants are a really good one. And hey, if you go in and buy a drink at McDonald's, there's nothing saying that you can't take a cup or 2 of ice with you as well, or whatever, there's always sources to find ice. And I like that about the restaurants. And I've even been told on occasion that you might even be able to walk into a hotel on a, certain times of the busy morning and just have breakfast. Not saying that that's ethical or anything, just saying that I've heard it's been done. But for us, we would pop into hotels sometimes. And even on occasion, I just go to the desk and say, hey, we're traveling through. Do you mind if I grab a little bit of ice? And most times they really didn't care. But yeah, so freezers, I know you guys have heard this one before, but Harbor Freight's got those moving blankets. I buy them at Princess Auto up here in Canada. Still almost as cheap, not quite as good as Harbor Freight giving them away, but they're a great added insulation for freezers. Fridges, not so much, but any of the freezers that, the cold air wants to come up and out, great. And you guys know that I'm a big fan of the Govee freezer alarms. And the absolute worst thing you can do when there's a power outage is keep opening your freezer to see, oh, is it cold enough? Is it not cold enough? So get yourself a good, the one I have now is the Govee, and I love it. Joseph says people do it at the hotel all the time. And yeah, I absolutely believe that. People just come in, get ice, whatever. And most people don't care because it's making ice either way. But have a freezer alarm so that you don't have to, empty things out or, open it up and let all the cold air out. Back, about 20 years ago when I finished college, I was working at a Dairy Queen and we had a huge power outage and we had ice cream cakes there. I like my ice cream. And they had those great big glass fronted freezers that we displayed all the cakes in. And we had, I think it was a rule, like 1 hour, and the cakes were no good. So we took all the cakes, all the dilly bars, all the Buster bars, and they were going to go in the garbage. I took them all home, put them in mom and dad's deep freeze. We wrapped them in blankets and they stayed good in there for almost 2 days till the power come back on. And we were eating free Dairy Queen ice cream. It was a little bit freezer burnt because it melted ever so slightly, but I bet you we ate free Dairy Queen ice cream for almost a year afterwards. And I'm sure it shows, although, but yeah, so freezer blankets or freezer. Oh my, Tim, what is wrong with you tonight? Moving blankets on top of a freezer. And then you guys know generators, they're the absolute must have when you're dealing with keeping food frozen, cold, whatever it happens to be in the, big bad power outage. I talk about generators all the time, but what do we need to have? fuel on hand, multiple types of fuel if you can. And if you can't afford a generator, or you're just not, you don't have the room to store a generator, and you got a great big car, truck, whatever it happens to be out in the yard, 1500 watt inverter will, just purchase, and let's put this guy up here, just purchased a 24 kilowatt generator, hoping to get it all hooked up before the next hurricane. Now that'll have to be enough to run your central air. The one I have, whatever, I mean, it is what it is, but I haven't tested it yet. My tri-fuel tops out at 9,300 watts, but running on natural gas, it's down around 6,500. But Klondike, you got to fill me in down the road on how well the generator is, what you bought, and what all you want to run with it. Because, hey, if we're backed up like this with a good generator, we're all set. But like I said, if you can't quite afford a full generator, an inverter, 1500 watt hooked up to the car, man, you can run a microwave, a coffee maker, a hot plate. And you know what? If you guys ever go into I love it, especially in the States, you guys have so much better truck stops down there than we do. But man, they're like a 12 volt shopping center at some of those Circle K's, or not Circle K, Flying J's. That's what it is. You go in there and you get to see some 12 volt stuff you never even thought existed, coffee makers, which are, but basically, if you have a 1500 watt inverter that you can plug in to any vehicle that you have, and you got a full tank of gas, man, you can heat your food, cook your food, or, maybe even power a small fridge or a freezer enough to keep everything good for the length of time you need it. So, I mean, like I said, the first thing that you deal with in a big power outage is just keep it stored. Now, I mean, 2, 3, 4 days, if you're careful, if you have a little bit of backup power, even if you don't, you can usually keep cold food cold, frozen food frozen. But then eventually you get to the point where it's like, all right, it's time. I got to deal with it. And you got to eat too, right? So, store it for as long as you can, and then cook it and eat it, I guess, is where we go from there. Now, these are all, let's see what it says here. Klondike says, I was told it would run both units, just has a priority switch, so both units won't start at the same time. I'll let you know if it works, as my electrician promised. Awesome. And I've heard about something I learned the other day too was, and maybe you guys all know about this, but I believe it's a soft start unit for central air units. So basically it causes it to not have that huge high spike that can shut a generator down or do damage to it. It helps it kind of slowly start as opposed to just kick in. So if anybody's looked into that kind of thing, let me know too, because that might be just enough to allow me to run my central air off my unit. So yeah, the next thing, like I said, dealing with food, power outage, you got to eat. So I figured I'd put together a list of a bunch of stuff that I'd already have around the house. Think outside the box, maybe not, I don't know, to a bunch of things you already have that you can turn around and use in a power outage too. And you guys know I'm a huge fan of dual purpose items. I hate buying. It's like, the people that say, I'm going to put together a bug out bag and it's going to I'm only going to use it when the shit hits the fan and EMP's gone off and I'm going to go live in the woods. And I've got $12,000 worth of gear in that bag and it's no good for nothing except in the absolute worst case scenario. I'm not like that. I mean, whatever. So first one, camping stove. Anybody who likes to camp probably has a little Coleman stove or a little propane stove. And those things are absolutely incredible for, just getting your food heated up. And remember, keep a bunch of 1 pound tanks on hand. And then there's a couple other little things that I keep around, and that's a 1 to 20 pound adapter hose. So I've got I want to say it's a 10-foot hose that we use for our outback fire pit when we just sit around and enjoy it. Get to keep all that Butcherbox meat cold. Ain't that the truth, Klondike? I'm putting that one up there so everybody can see it. There we go. Yes, got to keep. So again, a lot of us, I'm sure, some of us anyway, have gone keto. I've been doing pretty good, although the last couple of weeks. Hey, Ted, nice to see you, buddy. I hope, is it Ida? I hope Ida's stayed far away from you. But yeah, so a big thing about going low carb is the fact that you got to have a lot of protein and a lot of meat on hand. We've got 3 freezers just behind me in the other room in the basement, and you got to keep it cold. I mean, once it's in there, a good big thermal mass in the deep freeze is going to make a huge difference. And again, keep it all cold. That's why I have a generator, because there's a huge investment. I've got a half a beef and a quarter of a beef, so a side and a front quarter, all in the one deep freeze. And man, I do not want to end up losing that. So yeah, so camp stove. I've got a 1 to 20 pound adapter hose. So it goes from those little tiny, I don't know what you want to call it, but basically the little threaded adapters that work for the 1 pound tanks. And it goes out to the regulator on a 20 pound, 30 pound, whatever propane tank. That lets you save a ton of money. It lets you tap into all that propane that you probably already have stored anyway. So that works. Now, another thing that I've done is pick up a refill adapter. So if you guys haven't seen those and you don't have room to store a lot of big propane tanks, or for whatever reason, you just want to keep the 1 pounders around, number one, go through any campground the end of the weekend, you're going to find a ton of empty 1 pound tanks. And those things have gotten damn expensive. I don't know if you guys have, I think, man, I want to say they're $6 or $7 a piece right now in Canada, which is probably like 45 cents in the States. But, you know, go and pick a bunch of them up and look for the little 1 pound refill adapters. And, you know, if you have 1 20-pound tank, get yourself familiar with the system on how to refill them, but it works easy. You basically just need one needs to be cold, one needs to be warm. Invert the propane tank and they fill. They're great. I've done it. I've done it for a lot of my relatives who use those 1 pounders a lot, but just become familiar with the process ahead of time so you can have that on hand. Now, who doesn't love to grill? I'm sure we all think about it, but I mean, if you've already got a barbecue and you're sitting around thinking, well, I don't know how I'm going to cook. I don't have my microwave here to heat up my Hot Pockets. No, none of us are Hot Pocket eaters, I'm sure. But, you know, if you got a grill outside, number one, make sure you got propane on hand. And something else that I found, I've switched over. I don't know if you guys have looked at them a whole lot, but the 30-pound tanks, they take up just as much floor space as a 20-pound tank. And Costco sells them, and they're not that much more. And once you have the investment, you've got 50% more storage capacity already there. But better yet, I recently bought a new barbecue, and I made sure that it was convertible to natural gas. So if you've got that hooked up, and one thing I'm sure you guys notice, power goes out, at least in my area. I've lived here in Alberta now for just about 8 years. And we have about once a year power outage that's somewhat serious, you know, of a length that you actually remember. Had one the other night, right through the night, and I slept through most of it. But in the 8 years I've lived here, we haven't had a single natural gas outage in my town. There was one in a neighboring town an hour away for about a day, and it was really serious. But that was the only one that I've heard of in any kind of radius of my area in 8 years. So if you can get tied into natural gas in any way, shape, or form, if you have it in your area, it's a godsend, because that is like power when there is no power. So yeah, anyway. So a teapot and a French press. There's something about when the power's out, about being able to have a hot drink. I just love, I don't know. I remember back before I was married, I want to say I think I was working at Dairy Queen at the time, and that was that same power outage that we ended up getting all the free ice cream cakes from. All I wanted was a cup of tea. Lost power for 3 weeks after Wilma. The longest I've ever had has been about 3.5 days. I don't know what I'd have done, Ted. I mean, we would have made do. We're better prepared than, you know, the average bear, but still, it is what it is. But when it's cold or damp or shitty weather out, there's nothing better than having a nice hot drink. So having a teapot you can boil on an open fire, on a grill, you know, anything like that, sure beats having a Keurig. Having a French press that you can just boil water in and then, you know, push it down through and have a hot cup of coffee. There is nothing better. I don't know. It just soothes the soul to be able to have a hot drink when the power's out. So make sure you got a way to do that. I mean, most of us do. I'm probably preaching to the choir, but this is the type of video that I want to be there for everybody. So someone else who's never done this before can come here and say, oh yeah, that's a great idea. And hey, learn how to use a French press, because it's something, I know it sounds simple. I hadn't even seen it used before, like about a year ago. And now I'm almost obsessed with them. I think they're pretty cool. So yeah, know how to use that gear. I mean, if you can't boil a teapot, then, you know. So Lil Klondike said, same here after Hurricane Delta, about 3 weeks. I can't imagine. And Joseph said, went through a few in North Carolina myself. Bertha, Fran, not sure of others, but those two left an impression. So in my area where I grew up on the East Coast in Nova Scotia, we had a hurricane in the wintertime. It was on Groundhog's Day, and it was before my time, but it was bad enough that there was saltwater spray coming from the opposite coast over 100 miles away. And it washed out the road that my dad, basically where my dad lived, there's only one road in and out to get up the coast, and it washed it out. And they were, I think it was 5 or 6 days without a road, and they were well over 2 weeks without power. This was in the late 70s. And, you know, they barely skipped a beat. They still had an outhouse. They did have a deep freeze, but they wrapped it in blankets. And he said, I think those were, you know, made out of asbestos back in the day. So, I mean, they were good for, you know, they had no issues. And I think that's maybe one of the big problems, is that too many people now just aren't used to making do without. And I guess this is kind of one of my passions, is saying, hey, listen, it's not nearly as hard as you think. It doesn't cost you nearly as much as you think. And you can get by really well in some bad situations pretty easily. No power for a month changes. What's that? Yeah. No power for a month changes life a lot. 8 from a Red Cross truck. Holy cow, Joseph. That's insane. So you were an entire month without power. I can't even imagine. And Ted says, Lil Klondike Outdoors makes you really appreciate the small things in life we typically take for granted. Ain't that the truth? Like a hot shower, for instance. I never even thought about that, but we'll deal with that another day. So another thing, we like to sit around the fire pit in the backyard. Ours is a propane one, but you might have a wood one as well. And again, I always think it's kind of funny, you know, you hear the story of people starving with food all around them, or, you know, drying out with water all around them. And it's the same. If you've got literally no way to cook, but you've got, a fire pit where the kids roast wieners and make s'mores out of it. Well, hell, why don't you get out there and build yourself a fire? I mean, that's maybe the worst case scenario, but again, what do? Practice making fires and learn how to do it. Keep dry tinder on hand, keep wood on hand, keep matches and lighters on hand. Some people might say, oh, but lighters, they're a cheat. No. There's no such thing as a cheat when it comes to preparedness. Whatever makes life easier for you, man, just do it. Stock up on the lighters. You guys have seen, I got some recommendations on a couple I really like, but yeah, I mean, just know how to build a damn fire. If you got a fire pit, and even if you don't have a fire pit, if it's a real bad situation, you can always improvise. If you got an old tire ring around, there's 100 things. Dig a hole, surround it in rocks, and light a fire. You know, worst case scenario, you don't need to worry about HOA regulations in a real bad situation like that. So how about a wood stove? Now this was bigger on the East Coast than it is on the prairies, but I'm sure a few of you guys have one, and I would love to get one just for a backup source of heat out here. But as you can imagine, wood on the prairies is a little bit, you know, expensive, cost prohibitive, right? But so if you got a wood stove, and it doesn't need to be, you know, a $5,000 enamel plated, you know, wood cook range. It can be just a simple old black box made out of cast iron that you heat your house with. But, you know, keep a supply of seasoned wood on hand. What I love about it, though, is you can cook on those things. Man, we used to put a pot of stew on top of the wood stove and just leave it all day long. And there's nothing better than a long, slow cooked stew. And man, you put a pot of stew and a teapot next to that, and man, you can eat and drink like a king for days without even having to worry about it. And it's an emergency backup source of heat too. Now, of course, if it's summertime, I'd probably be outside grilling as opposed to being on the wood stove, but always something to think about. So it's always during the hot, humid, mosquito infested time of the year too. Takes all the fun out of it. Add in 20 inches of rain and those can, oh yeah, ain't that an awful thing? Yeah. Oh, I hate mosquitoes to begin with. I'm trying to, anyway, we have those little round, I got to look up the name. I'll put it in the comments afterwards, but man, they have been the best mosquito repellents. They've got a little propane, butane type thing in them and a little sheet. And those things have been incredible. My wife bought them and they work. So now here's one that not everybody thinks about. And I was brainstorming some notes for this video. And if you get yourself an RV, you basically got a self-contained cooking unit right there. So if you got an RV and you need to keep things cold or cool. Thermocell. Oh, I wish Joseph beat Ted to it. Everybody else already knew anyway, so that's good. Yes, Thermocell, that's it. And those things work like the cat's ass. And I just bought a bulk pack of like 48 of those. I don't even know what they're called, the little tickets you put in them, and a dozen of the butane cells. But man, they're awesome. Yeah, I love them, and they really, really do work. What do they say? Great minds think alike, or fools think alike. I can't remember, Ted. It's one of those two, you know. So yeah, if you got an RV, you've already got a fridge and a freezer that are going to run on propane. Now, they take a little while to get up and running. So if you know that you might have a power outage coming, it wouldn't hurt to have that plugged in and get it cold and cool and running already. So then you can just turn around and have it running off of propane when the power goes out, because that's what I do when we're ready to go away for the weekend. I get it cold with electrical, and then it doesn't take nearly as much fuel to get it up and get it going. And I did not know that there was a USB charging one. Now that is something to do a review on. Oh, let's see what Chris has to say. I like this. I'm going to bring it up here on the screen so this old man can read it better. Built a small scale rocket mass in the basement. Yeah, there we go. Stuttered for a minute. We ran it last week and about cooked ourselves out of the house on 6 sticks. I would have liked to seen a video on that, Chris. That is really cool. Now, did you, by the name of White North Forge, did you have to weld to make it, or was it just something that you kind of built, on the fly? Because I'd love either way. If you got pictures or video, I'd love to see it. But yeah, so back to the RV thing. The other thing, of course, is you got a propane stove in there. Now, last time we upgraded all of our appliances, we stuck with electrical. I wish we'd have gone to natural gas, but that's a story for another day. We were in the middle of a pandemic at the time, and it really, we didn't have much of a choice on the appliances we bought. So yeah, anyway, so an RV, like I said, you can sleep in there. You've got heat. You've got anything you can run off propane. You're all set. So that's a good way to do it. And of course, if you got to eat during powered, I got to look into those USB thermocells. Sorry. I think that was a squirrel ran by there. I got distracted for a second. But so shelf stable foods you can eat out of a can. Have a good quality can opener, like the Easy Does It one. You guys know I recommend that. It's American made. Oh, anyway, this isn't a commercial, but I love that damn can opener. Anybody else has used it? It works. Or there's a YouTuber that I watch that eats weird things out of a can, and he absolutely hates pull tab cans. But hey, for us prepared and minded people, it reminds me of the old Twilight Zone episode where the guy finally had all the time in the world to read, but he broke his glasses. So if if it's finally time to eat all your damn canned food that you've been saving for 10 years and you don't have a can opener, you got to have a way to open it. So the pull tabs, they're not so bad. And my daughter, Alice, I love her so much. She has taken to wanting to eat MREs. So every time we go to the city, we end up buying a full case of MREs from the local Army surplus store. And so if you buy the ones with the heaters, some of the Canadian meals don't have the heaters. Some of them do, so you got to check. But if you have them with those, I guess they're a chemical reaction heater. I don't know exactly how they work yet. I haven't really dug into them, but we've been taste testing them. I might even do a video on those XMRE meals because they're kind of cool. But yeah, so if you've got a case or two of them stashed away, you can have a hot meal, a hot drink without any need of, heating anything up whatsoever other than those, I don't want to call them built-in, but included MRE food heaters. And then, of course, when we're dealing with food, there's always the thought of water. So you either need to have stored water or you need to have a way to filter water, because if the power's out, and it may not happen right away, but your municipal water might surplus MREs. Some are really good and some weren't so good. We worked our way through a case of breakfast ones a couple weeks ago, and they were kind of fun. There was a hash brown and sausage combination that I really liked. Some of the Canadian ones aren't even freeze dried anymore. They're just vacuum sealed. So they only have a shelf life of like 18 months to 24 months. But man, the quality on them are top notch. And then some of the new ones we just got are freeze dried. So we'll try them out. But yeah, I mean, that's an easy way to have a hot meal that literally requires almost no work whatsoever. So yeah, back to the idea of water, of course. So if you've got food you want to eat, you got to stay hydrated. So we got to figure out a way to store it. and so that you're not digging into your water resources, because of course, I mean, most times when the power goes out, the water doesn't go out too, but it's always something to think about. So I like to save up disposable plates and forks, that kind of stuff, from whenever we get takeout. I throw them up in a cupboard. I'm like an old man who, my wife, when we go to a hotel, she saves all the soaps and the shampoos. And for me, when we order Chinese or something like that, I save all the condiments, all the paper, every bit. Oh yeah. So I was at Costco the other day and they had some of those Life straws. And of course, what do you do now when you see something like that? But you go on Amazon and you look and you say, oh yeah, I can get it there as well. So a lot of times I find Costco's price, I seen it was a 3-pack, I believe. Anyway, the price was about the same. I almost picked some up. I didn't. I've got my Berkey. So I'm sure a lot of you know about Berkeys, but if you don't, man, they look good in the kitchen and they last friggin' forever. I use them all the time. I think it's about time to clean my filter because they're getting a little slow. But you got to have a way to store water. So whether it's pop bottles, 5-gallon jugs, whether it's a rain barrel outside, the Berkey will take care of it. But if not, we've got a local place here that you can fill 5-gallon jugs for $1.50. Fill as many as you can, keep them on hand because you got to have water. And then use your disposable stuff, throw them away so you're not wasting it on hygiene and that kind of stuff. And again, it's always one of them, there's always, not the myth, but people say you can always melt snow or ice for water if you need it. Bathtub, Ted. Yep. I remember back when I was, 2000. So December 31st on the new millennium, we went out, me and my buddy, and we bought a case of water and we thought, oh, this is pretty good. And then we're like, well, just in case the shit really does hit the fan and we're in trouble, I filled my bathtub too. So it was probably full of friggin', shampoo residue and everything, but we had the water just in case. We were going to survive off a case of water, probably a case of ramen noodles, and a bathtub full of nasty, grimy old water. But there's always a way. And that's a great one, Ted. And I always forget about that. If there's a really good chance that you got a bad power outage coming or even just a bad storm, fill the bathtub. There's even these bladders you can buy. I'm sure they're overkill, but you put them in the tub and they work as a storage for water when the power goes out, or, and it keeps it clean, whatever. They're good. They're nice to have. I don't know if they're necessarily necessary or not, but it is. And again, snow, ice, you can always melt that if you absolutely have to, but it's a lot of work. But if you're in a real bad way, it never hurts. So then from there, of course, hopefully we've been working through a lot of our food and we've been eating a lot of our food. The absolute worst thing a person has to do is throw it away. And sometimes that may be the nasty thing that we have to do. But if you try really hard, always think about it. Start cooking everything in your fridge first. Eat up everything you can. Your sandwich meats, make sandwiches, eat that up quick because that's the nasty shit. There's nothing real in it and it's going to go bad on you. But, your fridge holds the cold the least. Then your fridge freezer's next because, again, it's smaller, not as insulated as well. And then leave your deep freeze alone as long as you possibly can. So hopefully you've got, backup power and you never have to worry about this. But if we've explored all our backup power that we can, we have no gas left, whatever it happens to be, or maybe it's just been so long that we can't keep it cold anymore, then you got to have a plan. What are you going to do with the rotten meat? And it's always meat, right? Because that's the thing that goes bad. I read a bunch of articles on this again just to refresh myself, and they always said, hey, don't worry about cheese. Throw it on the shelf. It's going to be fine. Eggs, if they're farm fresh eggs, geez, they'll last 30 days on top of a fridge. You don't even have to worry about them. Store-bought eggs, they say they're an issue. You know what? If they're bad and you're not sure, put them in a glass. If they sink, they're good. If they float, they're bad. There you go. Keep a digital thermometer around so you can check things to make sure they haven't gone too far bad. But your sniffer is always the best thing. So, but again, what are you going to do if you've got to the point where, shit, my meat's gone bad, I got to get rid of it? Well, number one, if you got one of them rolling garbage tubs like I have here that the town uses, throw it all in there and get it as far away from the house as you can, because the last thing you need is somebody end up getting sick from all that meat and all that smell and all that nastiness. So have a plan. If you can't, where do you go from there? Maybe Rubbermaids, tape them shut. Like if you're in a a high rise, well, I hate to say high rise, but if you're in an apartment or something, you got to deal with it. Rubbermaids, put them in garbage bags, put them in Rubbermaids, tape the Rubbermaid shut, and then put garbage bags around that. Whatever you can do to keep the smell from attracting critters, attracting flies, anything you can. But do what you can to either get it as far away from you. I guess you could even bury it if you absolutely had to. But this is like way out there. But I mean, if you're looking at a week, but then some people, all they have is a fridge and a freezer in their little apartment, and it doesn't take long for that stuff to spoil. And then you got to have a plan for how am I going to get rid of it? Because I can't deal with the smell. I can't deal with the hygiene issues of it. And I certainly don't want to have critters coming along. So you got to have a plan for getting rid of all that stuff. So again, plan ahead, think about it. Don't spend a lot of time fretting on the idea of, hey, all my meat's going to go bad, all my food's going to go bad, but just have a plan in the back of your head. If that happens, this is how I'm going to get rid of it. And then I thought, you know what? I just threw this in at the end, but I had 5 favorite foods for power outages and stuff like that. And there's a bunch of things that either don't take a lot of work or they're just simple and you can use them on some of these off-grid kind of things. But number one is overnight oats. So if you've got no power whatsoever, but you got some milk or even just water and some brown sugar, just put the oats in the container. You can add some maybe canned fruit or something and just let it sit all night. And man, they are scrumptious. I don't eat a lot of oats anymore, but it's a great meal to make if you know you're not going to have any way to heat stuff for a long time. So just kind of room temperature oats with some milk or some powdered milk and water. Let them sit overnight, add some fruit, and you're good to go. Hey, Jaggy. Man, well, you guys, we haven't seen Jaggy in here before, but Jaggy is one of my friends. He just said, Tim, is it okay when this video is saved? Can I put it up on my Facebook pages and groups? Absolutely, Jaggy. Pass my love to the girls. Jaggy's a good friend of mine. I met him on Zello years ago, and he's got a bit of a Scottish accent, don't you, Jaggy? But and my girls think the world of him. Every time we're on Zello, they always ask, how's Jaggy doing? So it's good to see you, man. And yes, absolutely put this up there. I would love that. So another one that we do, and if you guys haven't heard of it, I love them. They're called hobo meals. I'm not sure if we're allowed to call them hobo meals anymore, but when we're camping and we have a campfire, you basically take a hamburger patty, slice up some onion, put some carrots in there, some butter, some salt and pepper, some potatoes, and you just throw the whole thing wrapped in heavy-duty tinfoil down in the fire and let it cook. And there is almost nothing better. Thanks, Jaggy. Man, I love you. It's nice to see you, buddy. But yeah, so just cook them all wrapped up in heavy-duty tinfoil, and my kids love them. Sometimes throw a little ketchup on them afterwards, whatever, but that's good. And don't ever forget about a good old-fashioned wiener roast. If you got a bunch of hot dogs, or sausages or whatever it happens to be, and all you got's a fire pit, get out there and friggin' have fun. Make a game out of it. Enjoy it with the kids. And then back in my college days, we used to have, I don't even know what we used to call it, maybe bread night or something. Basically, we'd all pitch in $2 or $3 and we'd go down to the local grocery store and we'd buy usually a couple packages of bread that's about to expire, some kind of weird cheap cheese, whatever we could find. And then we'd buy the cheapest meat that we could find on clearance. And it usually was chopped up stewing beef. So we'd take stewing beef and some salt and pepper packets, and we'd go out and we'd have a campfire by the river, and we would just roast stewing beef. And nobody ever dropped dead from a coal eye or anything like that. And it was a good meal. I mean, I know this is really simple, but man, it was awesome. I loved it. And I see Ted said canned peaches. I missed that. Sorry, man. But yeah, absolutely. Canned peaches are awesome to mix in with that overnight oats. I'm going to put Jaggy's comment up there so nobody misses it. But yeah, so stewing beef on a stick, man, we used to roast it just like marshmallows. And I loved it. It's one of my favorite things we used to do. And then I would absolutely be amiss if I didn't mention my dad's world famous camp toast. So whenever we would go back in the woods to the hunting camp, my uncle has an awesome deer hunting camp where more eating gets done than shooting of deer. I'm not sure there's been a deer shot there in over a decade, but we still call it the hunting camp. So that's all right. Anyway, my dad always calls it, he says, you got to go back. We got to have camp toast. And it's literally, we have a propane cooktop stove back there that we all love. And all it is you take the bread and you toast it on the open flame. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's a mix between the, the off gases of the propane or the char or whatever. But even when we go camping now, the kids always say, we got to have Grampy Cook's camp toast. And it's so simple. But if you have an open flame, you just toast your bread on it. It might get a little charred. It might not be, as good as, say, an Eggo waffle in an electric toaster for the kids that really love it. But camp toast is absolutely where it's at when it comes to that. I love it. It's simple. So I don't know if anybody else has any recommendations for simple camping things that you'd love to get into this video, because anything like that is easy that we forget about, because man, after you're 2, 3, 4 days into a power outage, a hot meal can just lift your spirits. And I don't know what it is. It's just, if you have light when it's dark and you have warmth when it's cold, it just makes you feel like a human again. And that's sometimes all it takes is to get through a power outage, is like, oh yeah, I had a hot meal. And sometimes it's as simple as throwing some toast, or well, it's not toast when it starts, but sometimes it's as simple as putting bread on an open flame and having camp toast, or having one of Tim's world famous hobo meals. Gas toast. See, I'm glad. Now I got to tell my dad that you call it gas toast, because he'll enjoy that. But Dad would always say that gas toast is the type of toast that gives him gas afterwards, which is basically anything, because we give him a keychain that says he's the world's largest source of natural gas. So there is that. But yes, gas toast, camp toast. I love it. There's nothing better. And I'm sure I'm forgetting 100 different things, but I wanted to put together, I don't know, just kind of a resource. I love doing this stuff. It's kind of my passion when it comes to, simple preparedness without being crazy and thinking the world's going to end, because there's enough people out there doing that. But this is the type of thing that people can really dive into, throw in a couple of stories. People love to hear about me being an idiot once in a while, filling my bathtub and that kind of stuff. But, there's always some really cool stuff. And what I like is, as you go along, you guys throw out ideas to me and we can share them, because as far as the community goes, this is what I love. It's the shared information and all of that. So if anybody's watching this down the road and it's a recording, well, obviously, because if it's down the road, it's not live, Tim, throw in the comments any other suggestions you guys might have for other meals. Or you know what, if I forgot, I'm sure somebody's sitting there beating their head against the wall saying, Tim, you forgot this. You're an idiot. Why did you, or don't do that. And yeah, while we're talking, one thing a person needs to have is some sort of carbon monoxide detector. I've been looking for a battery one. So if anybody can point me in the right direction, I'd like to have one that I can include in my blackout bag, but I'd also like to have one for this kind of thing, because anytime you're introducing, burning of fuels and that sort of thing in an enclosed environment, it can be dangerous. I had a friend a few years ago burnt their house down, or an acquaintance who ran a generator in their covered porch, and caught their house on fire and burned it down. So that's always a possibility too. So a good smoke detector. But anytime you're dealing with this kind of, I don't know, like emergency preparedness type thing, and you're cooking or heating, anything like that, safety is a good thing too. So have a couple of fire extinguishers, or, that fire spray stuff around. I love it. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'd like to do more in this series. I really, really enjoy putting this together. It's always fun. Like I said, normally we do this on Sunday night when everybody's around. Thumbs up from Ted. Thanks, Ted. I always appreciate it. Tuesday seems to have worked really good for people too. But what did I want to tell you real quick about this week? My fall jobs are starting to book up like crazy. I love it. I know Ford's not on here tonight, but if you guys ever see Ford through here, he always laughs because I call gutters eaves troughs. And so my gutter jobs or my eaves troughs cleaning, I think I've got almost 10 booked already, and we're like a month out. So yeah, it is what it is. Just spent an awesome weekend away with my family just before school starts back up again. We had a great time. Went away and did something that's super important to preparedness. I went to the dentist and got the last of my fillings done. It'd been a few years, and I think we made 4 trips to the dentist, and I am now cavity free. So that is important, because who knows when a worldwide pandemic is going to shut down the dentist's office again, and you might have a real bad issue and you got to get it dealt with. So that's done. Something else, look after your back, guys. Man, I want to tell you, We moved a dentist a few months ago, and I wrecked my back pretty good. I thought I did permanent damage. I got lucky and I didn't, but my wife finally talked me into going to the old back cracker, and I hadn't had much, I don't know, I didn't put much stock in going to a chiropractor, but I want to tell you, he is my go-to now. Within 3 or 4 sessions, he had me feeling about 95% better. And then I went and frigged it all up here about a week ago. My wife and I bought a hot tub, a nice, fairly new, almost new, but used. We picked it up. I need to stay up later on Sundays when you do more lives instead of 3 a.m. Oh, my dental health is very, yeah, it is absolutely true. So we went and we hired a picker to pick up this hot tub, but we had to get a strap under it. And dumbass me, I thought, oh, I'll pick it up. And I went to lift up on the corner. And as soon as I did, I felt whatever it was go in my back again. And it was bad, but I didn't go to the chiropractor. And then 2 days later, we did a big move for a lady, and I was in the most pain I've ever been. Anyway, this isn't a, feel sorry for Tim kind of session. I just want to let you know, if you've ever hurt your back, go see a chiropractor first, because I seriously thought I must have ruptured a disc or something, and he fixed me up so good. So don't ever be scared to try something new. I was because I was stuck in my ways. And when I went to the chiropractor, I want to tell you, man, he fixed me up. And then one other thing I wanted to mention, I'm sure you guys probably all saw it, but if you didn't, our community member of the month spotlight is Carrie Brown of Strong Roots Resources. I always get tongue tied on that for some reason, but if you haven't checked him out, check out Monday's video. It was a really cool spotlight on him. He did a review. Hey, John, I didn't see you in here. Yes, you know what? I don't know. Anyway, it's good to have that. I go in every 2 weeks for a tune-up. I love that. That is the truth. And again, I guess another kind of preparedness type thing is have a good health plan. Everybody says, oh, Canada's healthcare is free. Well, it's not free. It's taxpayer paid. But man, all it covers is the basics. And we have, again, go off on a tangent here, but the fact that I started a business and now my wife started a business allowed us to legally have 2 health plans that we're covered on. It allows us to double dip, and we're covered for things like the chiropractor at 100%. So, man, I'm telling you, if you ever think, oh, I don't know if I should start a business, it's worth it. The benefits on the other end are so incredible. And now we've got like 10 or 12. Hey, Charlie, that's my daughter Charlotte there too. Sorry, I'm late. That's okay, sweetie. I bet you were playing Fortnite, weren't you? Anyway, yeah. So if you guys are ever thinking about getting into entrepreneurship or starting an entrepreneurial venture, there's so many benefits. But like I said, we've got a ton of people that are all on this health plan now, family members and everything, that has helped everybody out. So anyway, that's just a whole nother thing. A good chiropractor is worth their weight in gold, as is an acupuncturist. So Charlotte, I don't know if you see Jaggy there, but it's nice to see him in here tonight. So if anybody else has tried acupuncture, that's something else I would love to. I've never had to yet. I'd totally be worth trying it. I think my daughter went once and she cried and didn't really enjoy it, but I would totally be down for that. I would definitely. All right, guys. 48 minutes in. I try to keep it to 45 minutes. I know you just showed up, Charlotte, and I love you, but my voice is starting to go tonight. We'll see where we end up. But so guys, if you don't know, or you're new here, or you're listening to this on the recording, normally Sunday nights, 8 p.m. Mountain Time, which I don't even know how to translate that into Scottish time, Jaggy. I apologize. But yeah, 8 p.m. Sunday night, almost every week. I just love it. This is the highlight of my week now, guys. I love getting in here and checking in with everybody in the community. So thanks for dropping by, guys. And as always, you know what it is. Stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week.